Welcome, everybody. My name's Ryan Heath from Politico Europe. I'm the author of the Brussels Playbook column. It's a very small, intimate audience here in the room, so we're so pleased to have you. But there's also an audience watching online. So welcome to everyone who is tuned in to the web stream. This is the first in a series of 3 events, a new series that Politico is running called Kickstarting Europe. So I wanted to give you a little quick word about Kickstarting Europe. And the point of this series is to gather together the most inspiring, challenging, entrepreneurial, interesting speakers that we can find from across the world of technology. Whether it's regulation, startups, investment, innovation, the point is to really drag out the most interesting thoughts and the people who present them in the most interesting way, and then to challenge the audience to come and have a very freewheeling discussion about that. So we can't do that without our sponsors and partners, Telefonica. So we want to offer a big word of thanks to Telefonica for powering this series. And I want to thank all of you for agreeing to participate in this initiative. You can, of course, make your suggestions known online as well as making them known in the room. I encourage everyone to tweet using the hashtag Kickstarting Europe. And at the end of the event, because it's a Politico event, we love to annoy you just a little bit by asking you to fill out the evaluation forms if you're joining us here in the room. But before we get straight into our wonderful discussion with Gianmarco Verrugio, I'm going to invite up onto the stage, or the platform space here, Angela Schenchet, who is the Director for Predicting Human Behavior at Telefonica. Angela, take it away.
Hi. I'm just going to move this a little bit. So concerning artificial intelligence, I know right now there's a lot of discussions, conversations about the sort of risks and some very existential questions about artificial intelligence and its use. But I actually spend every day thinking about imagining benefits, the benefits of it, and how to build those into products that can provide value to customers in such a way that we can continue investing in those technologies and we can continue innovating. So I'm kind of speaking from a little bit of that perspective. So from this thought process that I've been in, one of the things that has become really clear to me is that we need to kind of rethink the way that we are actually bringing data to the use of AI. Right now, data kind of sits out there somewhere, and it's crunched out there, and then we as consumers receive it as benefits. But we don't initiate that process, and we're not part of that, we're not at the center of that value proposition. So one of the things we need is really to enable, you and me as consumers to hold our data, and as the CEO of my company, Telefonica, has described it and has promised, it's really about giving customers back control of their data. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. I'm going to start with a little scenario. Has anyone had the lovely pleasure of filing an insurance claim lately? Well, okay. I had a burglary at my house in the U.S. over the summer. 4 or 5 months later, it's still not resolved. So I can tell you that AI can help through much of that very manual process, but I'm going to focus on one aspect of it, and that's getting receipts. So the insurance company asked for receipts in order to prove that the things that you said were stolen you actually purchased them. And somewhere in this sort of, I was probably, elbow deep in boxes of paper receipts, I realized that this data that I was looking for actually existed somewhere. It probably exists in one of those companies that track my purchasing history and make money by sort of selling credit reports and things like that. So imagine now if I had access to that data, what I could do. So first of all, I could use artificial intelligence to locate those records. So find me the receipt of that television that I bought last year. Now imagine if I actually held that data and had control over that data, what kind of scenarios I could do. So I could not only locate those records, but maybe I just send a confirmation to the insurance company that those items were purchased. And I don't send all of my data. I don't send, where I bought it, when I bought it, how I bought it, whether I financed it, other things that I bought at the same time. That's all kept with me. Now, another option is that if I held that data, I could authorize an insurance company to run an algorithm across my data and tell them should they investigate my claim more. Essentially, I don't send the data. They receive an indication of, say, a fraud score. Am I likely to be defrauding them? So you can see that this is a different way of thinking, and there are some real benefits to consumers and to companies. And that's a balance that I'm trying to draw here. It's important that we can continue to fund this kind of innovation. So imagine what we need to make this kind of possible. So first, we need technologies and infrastructure that can actually safely protect the data, but also enable it into the ecosystems that can use it for my benefit. For instance, bringing algorithms to the data versus sending data up to algorithms. New technologies like blockchain and edge computing can actually help in this way. If this were available, this would actually change very much the whole dynamic with companies that are holding your data. There is a hoarding mentality out there right now. You and I, as consumers, we leave our digital breadcrumbs, and there are companies that are just running after to gather those up and create these kind of profiles of us, these sort of virtual you and me's. And they need to do this to be able to compete, and artificial intelligence needs this to be able to work better for us. But there's actually a lot of disincentives for companies to continue to do that. So, for instance, it's really very expensive to do that, to store all that data, capture all that data, have all the systems to run it. And it's not a lot of companies' core competency. I mean, it might be the core competency of a company like Facebook, who is there to capture the data and then they monetize it elsewhere. But say a retailer, it's not the core competency of their business. Also, it's becoming more clear that there are many risks around having customer data, and things like data breaches at companies like Experian make that more clear to companies now. And also, it's not scalable. So it's just not scalable for every company out there to be capturing, storing, and processing every interaction that it has with every possible customer. So if we are able to put the consumer at the center, for instance, policies also are not a barrier to third-party sharing of information. And that's really key to enabling really powerful use cases for you and me. And also, stricter regulation here, it is really going to benefit incumbents. It strengthens their stranglehold on this whole data economy. It also stifles innovation. So we need new kinds of methods which open up new kinds of business models and enable more players, smaller players, to be able to innovate and compete. So hopefully you'll see what a technology and a business perspective can bring to this conversation and engage with us on that. So thanks for listening.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Angela. I'm not going to do a long introduction because I'm excited. I've been following roboethics for a while, and I've got a feeling we're going to hear a little bit about it next from Gianmarco Verrugio, who is the Director of Research at the Italian National Research Council and who is responsible for the Genoa branch of the Institute, looking at electronics, computing, and telecommunication engineering. So coming up, Gianmarco, we've got 15 great minutes of you and your research, and then we will dive into some really interesting debate and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for inviting me to give some of my views to this selected audience. So I'll try to introduce you to the complexity of the present time. We heard about artificial intelligence, but I will begin a little earlier because I'm a roboticist, so I'm used to think about robotics. What is robotics? Robotics, in my opinion, is a new science because it is the melting of quite all the technologies and sciences we have today, not just scientific from the scientific field, but also from the humanities. Because we need mechanics, electronics, software, psychology, chemistry, and so on and so on. So, in my vision, it will be in the future well recognized as a new science, where the whole is much bigger than just the sum of the parts. So, let's start from the beginning. Robotics is a success story. Industrial robotics started in 1954. And after 60 years, every industry is based on the work of robots. No modern apparatus could be built just by humans. Cars or perhaps also the smartphone. But what is happening today is that industrial robots are going out from the cages. Till now they are segregated dentro work cells because they are dangerous for humans. But now the new field of service robotics is developing robots that are going outside the cages. We call it the end of the segregation era. So we will have robots around humans in the offices, in the hospitals, at home also, like the famous Roomba. But it is just the first beginning of the robotics invasion. This means that everything will have intelligence, because what is a robot? It's a machine with some computer inside, with some software, with some intelligence. So everything will become a robot. The dishwasher, the fridge, your car. And this means that in a near future, everything, small or big, will be a robot, in the sense that it will be an intelligent machine. But there is more, because we are living in the network era. We have internet and 4G and 5G, and everywhere we have now availability of the internet. So, from this point of view, everything will be connected to internet, and we call it Internet of Things, IoT. But you see that these two fields are converging, because things are becoming more and more intelligent, and they will become robots. But they are connected to internet, so all the robots will be connected to internet. The most simple application is just to telecontrol a robot, is what is called telerobotics, or perhaps to download an update of the software, or perhaps to make a simple operation through internet. But what is present over internet today? We heard about the artificial intelligence that is everywhere, because also in the financial market, or perhaps in the health field, we have examples of artificial intelligence applied to the big data. Big data is the huge amount of data that are available through internet. And we consider the data coming from the transport system, from the financial market, from the hospital, and so and so. And also from the social network. We are provider of data to this ecosystem of big data. So machine learning, expert systems, and analytics are trying to extract useful information, extract knowledge, extract something that could be useful from this big amount of data. So think of all of these all together. You have robots that are connected to internet. They are able to interact with all of this system of artificial intelligence. They are able to use this artificial intelligence. So the robot we will have in front of you will not just a simple machine with a brain inside, like in the science fiction, but it will be perhaps a probe. Its intelligence will be perhaps very limited, but through the connection, it could perhaps rely on a much bigger intelligence that will be available, like in the field of grid, the computational network that was used to process the data coming from the physics. This means that in the future, these robots will be more and more powerful. So it will be possible to imagine very, very fascinating futures. Instead of just thinking of an android, humanoid, or we can call it in many, many different ways, that will try to evolve and to become a human. I call it the Pinocchio syndrome, referring to the novel Pinocchio. Now, I think of a world populated by robots capable of interacting among them. So this possibly will create a collective intelligence of robots. So every single robot will be able to have all the capabilities that was developed by the other robots in the same activity. So it will be able to download the experience, the knowledge, the algorithm more appropriate to perform a certain task by itself without human interaction. This means that also a scenario of connective intelligence, many robots that will show a single intelligence spread over this swarm of robots. So this means that it will be more and more difficult to define what a robot is, what an artificial intelligence system is, where is intelligence, where is data. All the problem of privacy and so on will be more and more difficult to face. So, in my opinion, this will produce a big revolution. But what kind of revolution? It's very difficult to predict the future. And mainly because we are inside this revolution. Perhaps in a century, historians will be able to write the true story of this revolution. But inside the process is very difficult. What can we learn from the past? Let's think of the first industrial revolution. It was made possible by the steam. So in one century, there were big changes in the society. The agriculture field was no more so important. More people started to go to cities. The structure of society changed very deeply. And then we had the second industrial revolution, made possible by electric power mainly. And then the third industrial revolution that is called the digital revolution. So what kind of revolution will be the fourth revolution? there is no probably a single cause of this revolution, like steam or electricity or electronic. This will be probably this convergence of this artificial intelligence with the mechanical, electronic, and capabilities, and perhaps internet communications, and so and so. And nanotechnology and quantum computing and 3D printing. You see, every field you consider, you see that the future will be very, very complex. So there will be probably also a revolution in our culture, because I like to mention a philosopher, Luciano Floridi, that speaks about an information revolution. From his point of view, after the Copernican revolution, the Darwinian revolution, the Freudian revolution, we are going to be informational organism, inforg, embedded in this infosphere, this ecosystem of information, where our individual person will be no more separated by the other artificial or natural organism. And the complexity is also in many authors. For instance, Ray Kurzweil speaks about a singularity. He observed that the exponential increase in technologies will be probably capable to produce in some 10, 20, 30 years a singularity in which the artificial intelligence will be capable to overcome the human intelligence. All of this just to show you that we don't need to consider just artificial intelligence by itself, or robotics, or big data, but we have to consider all of these things together, because this is the key point. Because all of this will create, in my opinion, a social revolution. If we think about the problem of the loss of jobs caused by robots in the industry, we have to consider that all the society will change. The structure of the job market will change. So new politics will be necessary. But this will happen in a world where probably the same structure of industry will change, because today we speak about Industry 4.0, but the net, the open data, the 3D printers, and so on, will permit perhaps a new way of production in which, just in the same way you are able to download a book and print it by yourself, you will be able to download a file and build your own device by yourself through a very simple 3D printer. So even the rapid prototyping permitted by 3D printers will permit a new generation of makers, for instance, capable to create innovation and capable to create new products, a new economy. So it's important to be prepared to these changes in society, because if we are not prepared, this crisis could perhaps be very revolutionary in the sense, in traditional sense of a revolution. And of course, all of these will create new ethical, legal, and social issues. That's the reason why we started some 15 years ago to study roboethics. What is roboethics? Roboethics is an applied ethics needed to face the new development of robotics. And it's important to consider that robotics is not the ethics of robots. It's not the artificial intelligence of robots. It's not the 3 laws of robotics, for instance. Robotics is the human ethics that should drive ourselves in developing robotics in the future. And this means that we need a strong ethical debate, we need to inform society, we need to educate young generations, we need to educate policymakers to this complex future. And we have a lot of work to be done in the standard committees, and we are starting this in the ISO organization. And also in the legislation field, there is a lot of work, and we had just before Madi Delvaux that produced a report to the European Commission about the proposed civil law rules on robotics to deal with the problem of these autonomous machines that will perform tasks in the society, and trying to face the problem of the liability for the problems that these new kind of machines working autonomously without the direct control of a human will produce in the society. This is just a very, very quick overview, and of course there is a lot of work that is ongoing at international level. Just the last remark, as I told before, I am interested in a sort of a triage selection of the problems. When I speak about these problems, very often it starts a debate on the possibility that in the future robots will develop consciousness, perhaps self-consciousness. As I told, I am a science fiction fan. When I was younger, I read hundreds of science fiction books. But today, I have to deal with the today problems. And the today problems are the use that humans makes of robots. And in my opinion, the most important problem today is the military robotics. Because while we are speaking about science fiction, 90% of the robotics research all over the world, in the States, but not just in the States, is funded by the military agency. This means that we are in very few years facing a generation of automatic, autonomous weapons that will be able to kill humans without human supervision. And this is, in my opinion, a very urgent problem that we are dealing at an international level with the Stop Killer Robot organization, for instance, that is reaching the United Nations and so on. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Gianmarco. I'm going to call you back up for a second there. But that was a great talk, and we're now going to switch into in-room discussion. So I'm going to grab this chair up here.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us online, and we hope you contribute to the debate even further with the Kickstarting Europe hashtag.